Good morning, everyone, or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to 24 Hours of PASS, Growing Our Community. We're excited you could join us today for Andrey Zavadskiy's session, Offline Database Development and Unit Testing with SSDT. This 24 Hours of PASS event consists of 24 consecutive live webcasts delivered by up-and-coming speakers and experts from the PASS community. All sessions will be available next week on 24hoursofpass.com. To access any on-demand sessions, please refer to www.24hoursofpass.com for all session links. My name is Jen Stirrup. I'm a SQL Server MVP. I also hold the Business Analytics portfolio for the PASS board, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce you to Andrey today. Andrey will speak for 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll move on to the Q&A, where you can ask Andrey any questions you may have. Now, if you're having any issues, please just type your question into the question pane on the GoToWebinar control panel, and someone will assist you. To maximize your screen, please use the Zoom button located at the top of the presentation window. Feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A field at any time. The questions pane is located on the right side of your screen. Once we get to the Q&A portion of the session, I'll read off your questions to the speaker. Since all attendees are muted, you will need to submit questions by typing in the Q&A field. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the screen. At the end of the session. Your feedback is very important to us, so please do take a moment to complete it. It will show up in your screen. I'd like to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsors, Microsoft, Cisco and Dell Software. In addition, I'd also like to thank the support sponsors for this event, SQL Sentry, HP and SolarWinds. The staging of 24 Hours of PASS would not be possible without their support and dedication, and they are the reason that this event is available free of charge. Next, I'd like to bring your attention to the upcoming PASS Summit. Taking place in Seattle, Washington from October the 27th to the 30th, PASS Summit 2015 will feature over 200 sessions with world-class SQL Server experts. Planned and presented by the SQL Server community for the SQL Server community, PASS Summit is single-handedly the largest gathering of SQL Server and BI professionals. With over 5,000 attendees from all over the world, PASS Summit is also a great place to network and meet face-to-face with experts, peers and MVPs. More importantly, PASS Summit delivers on providing you with the answers to your SQL Server issues, along with the knowledge, strategies and skills you need to stay ahead of the curve. Please contact your local chapter for a discount code to save $150 off. Optimize your savings by registering before the end of Sunday, July 12th. To find out more about PASS Summit, please visit www.passsummit.com. And now please allow me to present the speaker of the hour, Andrey Zavadskiy. Andrey is a solutions architect, SQL and .NET developer. He has 20 years experience in the industry. He's worked with SQL Server since version 7.0 way back in 2001. He's developed in Visual Basic, C#, ASP.NET, MVC, JavaScript and SharePoint. He's an MCSE, MCSD and an MCT as well. And with that, I will hand over to Andrey, and best of luck, Andrey, and I look forward to your session.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Hello to everybody who has joined my session. Today we will talk about one of the components of Visual Studio named SQL Server Data Tools, or simply SSDT. I suppose every database developer has an experience in creating tables, writing stored procedures, and running queries with SQL Server Management Studio. Nowadays, it can be made with SSDT, but in a more efficient way. In this session, we will look at the major features of SSDT for database development and see how commonly used daily operations are performed with Visual Studio. SSDT covers all the stages of database development, creating objects and writing code, performing unit testing, preparing scripts for inserting data, and deploying to SQL Server. Besides that, SSDT allows you to work in online mode. You can create or change objects, run queries on the connected SQL Server instances like in SQL Server Management Studio. In addition, SSDT can make schema and data comparison between two databases. Developers from Microsoft Corporation have made a great job to create a single tool for database developers. All you need is here in one place. SSDT has many additional useful things like code navigation, IntelliSense, language support and validation, integration with Team Foundation server, refactoring, and so on. But the most important thing is that SSDT turns the development to a declarative model. There's no need to create a number of iteration scripts that alter the database to the desired state. You work with the database structure or database code in the state of how it would be in your database. The rest will be made by SSDT. We start the development of a database by creating a database project. After that, we can start to create database objects. And the simplest way to make the first step in database project is just to import object definitions from the existing database. Also, you can import database objects from database creation script or data tier application. SSDT also has a built-in code analysis rules that can be checked manually, or they could be run on every project builder. And now we will see how easily the database project can be created in Visual Studio. In my demos, I use SQL Server 2014 and Visual Studio 2013. Okay, I have Visual Studio already started. To create a database project, I click in the menu File, New, Project. In this window, I choose SQL Server, check SQL Server Database Project, and give it a name. Okay, it will be Clients DB Project. Check location, desktop. Okay, I click OK. Just wait some moments. Okay, some more. Okay, I have a new empty database project. So now I can import objects to it. Right click the project in Solution Explorer, then import, then database. Okay, now I set the connection. It will be my local SQL server, the list of databases, clients DB, database. Click OK. Now I can select the folder structure where my database objects will be placed. I prefer schema and object type and click Start. The wizard to import database objects has started. Now we should wait some seconds to finish. Okay, I click Finish, and now I have my database project. Schema, DBO, and type of objects, store procedures, and tables. Okay, let's look at our tables. When I double-click the table in Solution Explorer, here I see a table designer. It's very similar to Management Studio. There is a main part of the designer, the scripts window, and here is the list of objects relevant to tables. And here is the properties window. I'll move it to a better location. Okay. If I select one object, I see the properties of that object. If I made some modification in one area, for example, uncheck this mark, so this change is propagated to other windows. Okay, if I change here, so this change is repeated. Okay, let's look at our store procedure. This is my store procedure. I can add another store procedure. Right-click the folder, click Add, and then I choose the object. Here's the list of mostly frequently used objects. But now I choose a new item. In this window, I can select any type of SQL Server database objects. But now I choose programmability, then store procedure. And here I'll give it a name. That will be list all clients. Add. Okay, here is my store procedure, and I make a very simple command: select star from DBO. Okay, IntelliSense is working. And okay, Control S to save my store procedure. There, as you see, it's very simple. Please take care that my store procedure will be created in this schema, DBO. If you think that this DBO is your schema, no, it's just a folder. It has no relation to the folder name to the real schema in which the database object will be created. Every project in Visual Studio has a bunch of properties. Okay, right-click the project, and here, click project. It has a few tabs. The most important project settings. You can select a target platform, the default schema, in the case you skip or omit the schema name, database settings. That has many settings here, and there. It has code analysis rules. Visual Studio has a predefined rules. You cannot modify it. You can add any user rule. So you may to run this code analysis, right-click the project and select this item, Run Code Analysis. In the output window, we will see the warnings. If you check this option, so the code analysis will be run on every build. Now we are ready to deploy our project. It's funny, but in the database project, there is no menu item called Deploy Project. Instead, this item is named Publish. When you start to publish your project, SSDT generates the script for database creation. When SSDT has a connection to the target SQL server on which the database should be deployed, Visual Studio compares the script with real database objects and generates the modification script. This data, the difference between real database and your project, is applied on the target server. The similar process happens when you have no connection to the target SQL server. But in this case, you generate a data tier application file, DocPack file, and send it to the database administrator. The DBA then deploys this DocPack file on the target SQL server. To facilitate the deployment process, SSDT offers to use the publishing profiles. And now let's go to the deployment. Okay, right-click my project in Solution Explorer, and here is the item publish. You'll see this window. Now we can set the target server and database. Click Edit. That will be my local server. Database, I choose this one. Click OK. So if I click Publish, my database project will be published on my local server. But before our first deployment, I will show you how to create a publishing profile. Okay, all you need is just to click Create Profile button and see this interesting moment. When I click this button, here will appear a profile file. Create profile. Okay, it is shown. Okay, and now I'll show you the second trick. Right click the profile file, and now you can see an item set as default published profile. Okay, so if I click publish again, okay, I have all parameters are taken from my default profile. So now I press publish. The publishing process has started. The progress is can be shown in Data Tool Separation window, and at the right hand you can see the hyperlinks that will lead you to details of each step. Database projects can include some scripts that could perform some actions, from inserting initial data to tables to more complicated scenarios. SSDT uses the concept of standard scripts and deployment scripts. First of all, you need to create an empty script file. In this file, you can write your transact SQL commands. For example, select, insert, delete, anything that you want. Then you need to create a deployment script and call standard scripts from them in the correct order. Deployment scripts can be executed before or after publishing the database. So now we will create a simple script from real table data and then incorporate it to the post-deployment phase. Okay, I have some data in my client's table. We can see it via SQL Server Object Explorer. In the menu View, then SQL Server Object Explorer. Now I'll drill down to my local server, databases, clients DB, tables. And here's my table. Right-click, View Data. Here is my data in my table. Now, when I click this script button, SSDT will create the simplest insert command that will create my data. Okay, we will use these commands later. Now we will create a script in our database project. Right-click DB folder, add, and now I create a special folder for my scripts. It's better to have all scripts in one folder. Scripts. Okay, and in this scripts folder, I create a script. Okay, I select script, and now I choose script not in build. And now I will give it a name, initial data load .sql. Okay, add. And now I copy and paste my scripts. To exclude the duplicates, I delete all data in my tables. It's a very simple case. Delete from DBO clients. Okay. At first, I delete all records and then insert 4 records that I need. Okay. Good. Control S to save my data. Now I need to create a post-deployment script. Right-click scripts folder, add script. But now I select a post-deployment script. I click add. I leave the default name as this. This post-deployment script is has an SQL CMD its syntax. So we need these commands as shown in comments to execute my script. So I type colon R space dot backslash. Dot backslash means that it executes a script in the same folder. Double quotes, initial data lot.sql double quotes. Okay, Control S. Okay, I have a script. To check that it really works, I delete some records in my table. Delete. Okay, and now I can publish again. Publish. Oh. Oh, I made some mistake. Okay, let's build. Okay, build is successful. And now publish. Okay, I click publish. Bar, it's successful. Here's my data. I click refresh. Okay, I have 4 records that it was in the initial state. The primary goal of unit testing is to take the smallest piece of the testable code, isolate it from the remaining code, and determine whether it behaves exactly as you expect. Unit testing has proven its value in that a large percentage of defects can be identified during its use, even in early phases of the development process. When testing our application, our database, we're trying to find errors in our code module. But the bugs can be in the test itself, in the test that checks our code models that it has no errors. The other places that can be a source of errors are all those functions and code units that are invoked, that are called by our code module. This link between code units is called dependency. Generally, we can test everything in our database, but this can consume too much effort from the development team. So you might spend more time in testing than in developing the product. So the amount of testing should be reasonable. Every code unit can have input and or output parameters. These parameters can be scalar values or table values. We cannot test all values and all combinations of values. It's almost unreal. So the good choice of testing scenarios and testing parameters is not a simple case. I say it's an art of testing, but this is far beyond the scope of our session. SSDT unit testing consists of test drivers or test runners and the unit tests themselves. The test drivers or test runners are C# or Visual Basic classes. These classes execute the transact SQL command of the unit tests. And also they execute any optional pre-execution or post-execution blocks. Now we create a simple unit test. Okay, SSDT has a special menu item for database objects that implement functional logic, such as stored procedures, function, and triggers. Okay, if we right-click store procedure, for example, create client, and in the context menu, I have an item create unit tests. Okay, in this window, I select a project type. I prefer C#. The name of my test project. Okay, it will be client DB test project, and I can give a class name. I prefer to have one class for each database object. So I type SP for store procedure, then the name of my procedure, create client. Okay, I click OK. Now I must set the connection for the database testing project. Okay, it will be local. It can be class DB database. Okay. Optionally, I can set an automatic deploy of the database project, but I don't need it right here. I click OK, and here is my database project, and here is my newly created test. Take a moment. Each new test has an inconclusive condition. I will talk about later. For simplicity of the demonstration, I will use a prepared solution. It's a client DB testing project. In this project, I have two classes for each of my store procedures. Inside the class, I have a section of common scripts. It's a test initialize and test cleanup blocks, and 3 tests. Now let's return to our test designer. It's not appropriate in SSDT to write tests, for example, from Notepad. You have a test designer, and all code can be written here. So here is the list of my unit tests. Okay, positive tests, and here is the list of my test blocks: pre-test, test, and post-test. Okay, this is the body of the database unit test. As you see, it is written in transact.sql statements. In the bottom part of the window, there is a list of all available test conditions, and the list of test conditions selected for this unit test. I can select any of the predefined conditions. For example, scalar value. Then I press plus button, and this value is added to my test condition. No, I does not need it. I delete it. Here is the properties of that particular test condition. So row count, it is enabled. It will get first result set. It is my select statement, and it expect that there will be only one row. In my positive test, I check how the correct data is inserted. In test block, I set input parameters. Then I execute my store procedure. And after that, I run a simple select command to get my new record. By default, the unit test is not running in a transaction. So when a test finishes, it leaves some garbage data, it's test data in tables. So you need to clean it up manually. Okay, it can be made in a post-test block. In this block, I run the delete command with the exact client GUID. Another option is to use the explicit transaction. Okay, negative test. In this test, I will check incorrect data. They could break the field constraint. The length should be 10 or greater symbols. Okay, to run our test, we need to use Test Explorer. It's not here. It's there. Test, Windows, Test Explorer. Okay, I pin it. Okay, I select my positive test and negative test, right-click, and run selected tests. Okay, so we need to wait some time for the test being executed. Okay, oh wow, yeah, great. Positive test, okay, the data was inserted correctly. My negative test has failed, and here is the error message. But I wanted that SSDT should handle this exception correctly and show that test passes. This can be made by changing attribute of the test runner method. So we need to view the code of test runner. Right-click our unit test and select View Code. Here is the test runner. Okay, this is a method to execute my positive test, and here is the method to execute my negative test. All I need is to change the attribute in this way. So I'll comment this line, and I'll uncomment this line. Wow. No. Delete. And uncomment this line. So all I need to know is message number 457 and severity 16. I found these numbers by running the unit test code in a standard query window and looking at the error message. Now I can run my tests again. Okay, but before that, I will show you a second. The third test, it's a transaction test. It repeats the positive test, but it is implemented in transaction, so it has no post-test block. And look here, this test method is wrapped in explicit transaction. So when I select these three tests and run it again, just wait some minutes. Okay, just a little patience. Okay, wonderful. All my tests pass. SSDT offers the same functionality to debug TSQL code like SQL Server Management Studio, but you need to do this via SQL Server Object Explorer. You can set a breakpoint there and then run your code with debugger. Do not set a breakpoint in your database project. It's not working. Only in SQL Server Object Explorer. Also, SSDT allows to debug the TSQL code during the unit test, but you can debug only the code being tested. You cannot step through the comments of the unit test itself. Maybe it seems a bit strange because the unit test itself is written in transact.SQL. But that's the way SSDT works now. To start the debugging, we need to repeat all the steps that is described in MSDN documentation. I will show you these steps. Okay. But first, I need to set the SQL Server debugging. Right-click the project, then select Properties, and here is in Debug tab, there's an option, and I will set Enable SQL Server Debugging. Okay. Next step, we should set a connection timeout to a greater value. This can be made in appconfig file that is located in the project folder. Right-click project and then open File Explorer. Open folder in File Explorer. And here is my app.config file. Now I will edit them. Here is my connection timeout. 30 seconds. I will increase it to 10 times just for 5 minutes. Okay. I will save this file. Exit. Now I should rebuild my project. Okay, that's good. And now I can set a breakpoint. SQL Server Object Explorer. It can be opened from View, Server Object Explorer. Then drill down to my database. Databases, clients DB, programmability, store procedures, DBO, create client. So I will set a breakpoint here. Wonderful. Now switch to Test Explorer. And here I will run my positive test. But now I select another item, debug selected tests. Okay. Now we will wait more time than for a simple test. So it is running. Okay. 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 Wow. Yeah, that's great. Do you see this this yellow arrow on the red square? Yeah. This is a breakpoint. So we can step into, over, out. But now I will continue my test. Okay, it finished correctly. Okay, that's wonderful. SSDT allows you to create custom unit test conditions. How to create them is described in details in MSD documentation. Also, you can observe my project in Codeplex, where I created a couple of conditions for asserting string and datetime scalar values. In this demo, I will show you how to use custom test conditions in your test project. Okay, here is my SSDT conditions project. You can download it from Codeplex. And here is my clients DB testing project in another index. You must open custom unit test project and database testing process in different instances of Visual Studio. Now all I need is just to build SSDT conditions projects. Right click, build. Okay, it's ready. Now I need to copy DLL from bin folder. Right click SSDT condition project and choose item open folder in File Explorer. Here is my bin folder, then debug, and here is my SSDT condition DLL. Right clicked, copy. And now I need to copy this DLL to a folder where from which Visual Studio loads extension for unit testing. This is the path. It is described in documentation. And I'll paste my DLL here. Visual Studio see this extension only at startup. So I need to close my Visual Studio with my database test project. I close it. Okay, 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 okay. And now I open it again. Okay, it is open. Preparing solution, okay. Well, look at the references. There is no reference to my DLL. I can add it manually add reference. But SSDT offers a better way to do this. Just create a new test and the reference will be added automatically. Okay? Right-click Client DB Testing Project, then Add, then New Item. Here I select SQL Server and SQL Server Unit Test. I leave the default name, click Add. Just wait a moment. Okay. I can delete this test. It's not needed. Okay. I open my preferences. And now I see SSDT conditions reference to my DLL. Here in my unit test, now I can choose my new test conditions. It's datetime value and string value. Click plus button. So here is the properties of my test condition. Comparison function, expected value, and so on. In conclusion, I'd like to say that SSDT offers you a very good set of tools for database development. They are database projects, online queries and debugging, scripting capabilities, unit testing, deployment, comparison tools, and a number of other options that facilitate your work. And here are some useful references. If you have questions, for example, to developers of SSDT, you can ask them in the MSDN forum. I think you will enjoy Visual Studio like me, and I hope my session will help you to use it more efficiently. And now I return the reins back to Jan Syrup.
Hello, Andrey. Thank you very much for that very useful session. I really enjoyed that. So we have some time for some questions, and I've got some questions here, and perhaps we could take some time to go through those. So the first question is from Daniel, who's asked, what's the difference between importing database and using schema compare, and which one would you recommend? I think schema compare is a Redgate tool. I think it's a vendor tool. I will just
Okay, as I understand correctly, because I'm not an English native speaker, the question is about schema comparison. So this schema, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So yeah, they just want to know the difference between importing a database and using schema compare.
The difference. Important okay, there is an important database to database project, and there is an important database by SQL Server Management Studio. So importing from Management Studio. Importing from Management Studio is run in integration services.
Mm.
So it's, for example, by click.
Yeah, I think
import data. Okay, it imports the data from this import. It has the data, and it loses some structures. For example, primary key constraints and something details in that. In comparison, you can compare. It is run from SQL Server and schema comparison and data comparison. The schema comparison has very careful comparison between the structure of objects. So I recommended to update the metadata of the database. But when you use a data comparison, it has one great limitation. It can compare data only if you have a primary key. If your table has no primary key, it can't be chosen by SSDT for comparison. So when you use, when I need to copy the database, I can use impact to get all my data, and then I use schema comparison to update the metadata of my database.
Alrighty, that's great. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to suggest that if you have any questions, it can be addressed to me by any means, for example, Facebook, Twitter, or my email. So I can answer to you personally, or I can write a post in my blog.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. So with that, I think we can probably end the session. And I want to say a big thank you to Andrey for your great session. That was very intensive, and I'm sure people would have got a lot out of it. So thank you very much for that. And I would also like to say a thank you for myself, and also in behalf of PASS and behalf of the community, to Andrey for presenting his session on offline database development and unit testing. I'd like to thank Andrey for his time and his expertise. I'd also like to thank you for attending this session, and I've just heard from a friend in Russia who's listening as well, so we have lots of people listening from all over the world. It's wonderful. I'd also like to thank our presenting sponsors, Microsoft, SolarWinds, Cisco and Dell Software, and our supporting sponsors, SQL Sentry and HP. We hope that you enjoyed this session as much as we did. Follow along in social media with PASS24HOP, and please share your thoughts on the event with the hashtags PASS24HOP and also SQLPass. So stay tuned for our next session, SQL Server Agent, the life preserver for the drowning DBA with Lance Tidwell, which is happening in a few moments. And with that, we'll wrap up for today. Thank you again, Andrey. Thank you to the community for joining us today. It was a great session, and wherever you are in the world, good morning, good evening, and good night. Thank you.